Matthew, we are back.
We're back.
We are back.
We're back to the
Unnamed. Will it be unnamed when they release it? When we release it?
No, we'll probably have a name by then.
When are we releasing it?
Well, we're releasing the first one Friday,
Yeah, but
and this one will be
this will be the
released
second Friday.
second Friday.
So we can, if we release it afternoon,
Yeah,
it's
we'll
gonna have a name of the pot. But we're not. We don't know the name right now. All right.
So, welcome
Unnamed podcast that might be named when this is released.
That's right. We'll call it the Unnamed CrossFit Crave podcast.
Yeah.
I'm Matt.
And I'm CJ.
There you go.
Boom.
What are we going to talk about today?
Scaling.
Scaling. Why scaling?
Because there's such a bad rap about it.
Yeah.
And it's one of the best things about arguably the best thing about CrossFit.
Yeah.
Community,
Actually, I didn't
scaling.
think about it that way, but you're
I
absolutely
didn't
right.
either until right now.
Yeah.
But it's huge. And people put RXing a workout on a pedestal too much.
Right.
And that's not the way it should be.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it is probably one of these. Outside of community, scaling is probably the most important thing here. Because I think, if you think about it, you don't get scaling anywhere else you go.
Exactly.
Right?
You don't get scaling. You get great coaching here.
Mm-hmm.
You get the community.
Yep.
And you get a workout that you can perform at the same intensity someone that's twice as good as you at this thing
That's
that
right.
CrossFit is.
That's
you
right.
get the same workout.
Yeah. So I
Stimulus.
think you nailed the next part of that, right? Or the tip of the iceberg when it comes to scaling. You're scaling to maintain or preserve the stimulus that is created by the programming.
Right.
Right? And that programming could be short-term or long-term. Most programming has a short-term phase for a long-term goal. So they're doing short-term programming, 6-8 weeks, in order to develop a long-term ability, strength, longer workouts, longer runs, whatever that may be.
Less body fat.
Yeah, that's
Anything.
right. Yeah.
GPP.
GPP.
General physical preparedness.
That's right.
Almost messed that up.
That's right. So scaling is helping you create GPP, general physical preparedness, so you can be ready
you
to
can pick
do
up your
anything.
groceries without pulling your back.
That's right. You can pick up your grandkids without it, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Chase your kids around.
That's right.
So that's I guess that stimulus that you're chasing, the intensity that you're chasing, means that scaling can be for both elite athletes and for people just coming in.
Most definitely. Yeah, most definitely. Whether you're for an elite athlete, you're changing the range of motion or changing the movement because their ability requires a different stimulus to gain the same stimulus that maybe you and I would do. Or you're changing, you're scaling to change the stimulus for somebody that may have a limitation.
Right.
So I think there's like 3 really intended stimuli that we're trying to create there. Or maybe 4 really, if you look at why we change the range of motion or stimulus of a workout to scale it. You're looking at things like experience. Are they brand new, or they've been here 6 or 10 years?
Right.
Is there injury? Maybe there's an illness. Maybe there's just a range of motion issue, an ankle, hip, or knee that has been nagging them for quite some time. So it's not. You're not changing the stimulus. You're not changing the scaling because of one set thing. It could be multiple things, right?
Right.
Could be how long you've been here. How do you move? Do you have any issues? Do you have an injury? Do you have an illness that day? Right? I mean, that's not feel good. So we got to change something to help you keep the same workout competency or same workout effort, but knowing that you're not feeling the best that day.
Exactly. I was going to bring a notebook, too, and write notes when we did this, and I didn't do it.
Oh, yeah.
And my foot is stuck.
Your foot's stuck?
Again. I forgot to turn my chair back.
That's like every podcast.
I know.
You've got
I have a pea brain.
Can you get it out?
Size of a pea. No, because I'm on camera.
Oh.
Act cool.
So let's narrow down kind of the 3 primary stimulus, the 3 primary areas of general physical preparedness. And maybe we'll talk about the 3, and then we'll narrow each one of those down independently on how we would change a workout or modify the workout to keep the same stimulus.
Well, before that, I think we should mention that we program the workouts for the top 1%.
Good point.
So the coaches expect almost everyone in the gym to be scaling.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not something that you should be like earlier. You're like, why do we have to scale, or why is this podcast so important that we have to scale? Because most people should scale.
That's right. 99.9% of us are going to look at any given workout that day and scale it to meet their ability, their general physical preparedness for that day. Yeah.
And for even like intermediate athletes, you might not scale one day, but then there's a movement that comes the next day, and you're like, well, I can't do this. Scale.
Yeah. So why wouldn't we just do why wouldn't we water down all of the workouts? Well, because one day I may be really terrible at the Olympic snatch movement, which I am terrible, right? But I'm halfway decent at rope climbs. So if we never do any rope climbs, I never get to do something that I'm really good at. And if we do only snatches, right, I'm gonna be miserable because I'm not really comfortable with it. Now, if I do that as a general process where I know that, yes, I need to work on that, I want to come in, I want to scale it, but I want to try to get better, but I also get the opportunity to do things that I excel at, then I'm more apt to come back.
Right.
Versus that's all we're going to do is snatch. Well, that's just
I'm not good
for
at
me.
snatch.
Yeah, I'm not good at snatch.
You always come and you're always good at everything, and you just kill everything, and then the challenge part's taken out of it. You can't improve yourself anymore.
Right. You plateau.
Yeah.
And what we're trying to do is we're trying to prepare you for the unknown and unknowable, right? So we want to come in here. We don't want the plateau. I want to be able to, as I age, I want to be able to perfect movements and then change those movements if I need to because of something that's going on, or I'm just getting older and I'm not comfortable doing that.
Yep,
right?
exactly. And the unknown and unknowable, I think that's just life, right?
Yeah.
So that relates right back to your GPPs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, general physical preparedness. That's right. So those three stimulus. Let's talk about the first one, and I'll rattle off the three here real quick. We're talking about time domain, right? So the desired metabolic pathway. How long is the workout? Is it a short, intense workout, or is it a longer endurance workout? What are we looking at? Is it a Murph, which is a mile run, 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 air squats, and a mile run that takes people 55 minutes to finish? Or is it a Fran, which is 21:59 thrusters and pull-ups, and the top in the world can finish in under 2 minutes?
Right.
So
crazy.
What is that time domain? So that's the first one we'll take a look at. The second one is the general movement pattern. What are we doing that day? Squatting, deadlifts, right? And the last one there is the complexity. How many things do we mix together, right?
Yep.
So those are the three things that we want to kind of narrow the scaling down to, and we'll talk about each one of those and kind of develop that. So the time domain, CJ, what do you think about this first example here that we have that we wanted to talk about is deadlifts, 21:15.9, deadlifts at 355 for the men, 235 for the ladies, and then we're rowing for calories. So again, we're 21:15.9, so you're going to do 21 deadlifts for the guys at 355, for the ladies at 235, and then you're going to row for calories. So is that deadlift, that deadlift's pretty heavy.
That's a very heavy deadlift.
Yeah, so that's well above my 1 rep max.
Yep.
Right, at 45. I can't pull that off the ground.
Right.
Right.
So you're obviously going to want to scale that, but you're not going to want to scale down to 135, which might be 50% of your 1 rep max, right?
So why is that? Let's talk about that.
So you're trying to create the stimulus, the same stimulus that someone who is RXing it is going to get. So the coach who programmed that, or whoever programmed that, is going to want the heavy deadlifts mixed in with the row. So those are two pulling movements. You're going to, two pulling movements of only two exercises.
That's right.
So that's going to be a very hard stimulus on the body. You don't want to go really light, and then the deadlifts are easy, and then the rowing's not that hard either. So you just mix those two. You're going to get a completely different stimulus than someone who might do whatever 355 is probably 80%, 85% of your 1 rep. And someone who does that is going to take a lot longer than if you do 50%.
Yeah, and you nailed it, I think. So if you look at that, the coach is going to say, hey, the deadlift today is 355 pounds for the guys. But they should give you a marker. That should be no more than 80% of your 1 rep max.
Right.
Meaning we want it to be heavy, right? But that portion of the movement or that portion of the workout is intended to be done slower at a different pace
Mhm.
than the rowing, which
Right.
is a high cardio, high output effort.
Yep. And if it's at 80% of your 1 rep max and you have 21 and then 15 and then 9 reps, that's a high rep scheme
Yep.
for your 80%.
Yeah. And so your form's going to degrade quickly if you're not careful
Exactly.
with it, right?
And so your form will degrade quickly or quicker,
Mhm.
and you're going to want to, or so you're going to want to like take more breaks and
Yep.
throughout the whole workout. If you have 135, you might be able to do that 21 unbroken.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. And so essentially at the end of the day, what we want most people to be able to do that through that 21:15:9 is to finish relatively in the same amount of time.
Right.
You're never going to finish in a type of workout like that. You're never going to finish at the same time. Like the
Mhm.
whole class everyone's going to drop that last 9 calories and pull it in everyone's yellow time at the same time. That's not
Right.
going to happen. That's not reality.
Exactly.
Nor is it in life. I mean, nobody finishes at the same time in life either,
Right.
right?
Yeah,
So,
true.
but we want you to relatively finish close to the same time.
Right. And that's when you'd give a certain, like a 10-minute time cap or something. It might be probably be a little longer than that, but
Mhm.
you'd give like a 10-minute time cap, and then you know yourself, or you ask a coach and like, hey, what should I be shooting for,
Mhm.
or what weight should I do? Because I don't think, I mean, I can't speak for everyone, but I'm not sure if anyone in our gym could do 355
Right.
or the 235.
Yeah.
So 100% of our gym would probably have to scale that.
That's
workout.
right. Yep. Yeah, exactly. So our scaling effort for that one would be the most evident one and easiest one would be reducing the weight on the
Yep.
deadlift.
Right.
And you're reducing that because you want to be able to finish the 21:15:9 without taking large breaks. The deadlift should slow you down,
Mhm.
but you should be able to maintain a quick pull on the rower once you
Yep.
jump back to the rower, right? So there's a fine balance there. So if you're looking at, hey, how do I look at scaling? The first thing is time domains. We want to try to keep you finishing within the same time domain as the rest of the class, but still getting a good stimulus out of it,
Right.
maintaining the integrity of what was programmed.
Yep.
Right.
And that's like when we would program it, we would have a target time. So
Mhm.
where you're trying, like your target time is 10 minutes. So try to pick something where you think you could finish all of those reps in 10 minutes, or there would be a time cap of
Mhm.
13 minutes or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, exactly. And this one is intentionally, there's a part of this that's this couplet, the deadlift portion is going to be done slower than the row. That's
Right.
just the way it's designed because it's heavier,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now, the next example, okay, is just a flip of that. It's 21:59, so same rep scheme, okay? But it's a high gymnastics movement. It's handstand push-ups and rowing for calories.
Right.
So it's still a row, it's just a different range of motion.
Different range of motion and different, you're going to approach that a lot different too, right? So
Mhm.
your handstand push-ups and your row are both ideally for the experienced athlete, they're going to get through those pretty quick.
Mhm.
So you're going to want, instead of like your max effort deadlift and you're taking a lot of time,
Mhm.
it's going to be fast.
Yeah, so it's a much, much quicker
Right.
time domain there. Right?
Exactly.
I'm going to cycle through those handstand push-ups. If I'm doing it RX and I can do handstand push-ups, I'm going to cycle through that much quicker. I'm going to jump on the rower and I'm going to pull those 21 calories much quicker. So this one, because it's more of a gymnastics movement, it's going to be looked at differently. But
Mhm.
still, the stimulus, we want to maintain the stimulus. So what we don't want to do is kick up for a handstand, do one handstand push-up, come back off the wall, and then spend the next 3 minutes
Exactly.
getting up the energy to do another one.
Right. And I think that's another thing we can talk about is your level of fatigue. So
Mhm.
you don't want to get to that point, like you said, do one handstand push-up, you have to kick down, and then you're just hating your life for 3 minutes till you work up the nerve to do another one.
Right.
So you're going to want the same stimulus throughout,
Mhm.
right? So
Exactly.
they're going to get, experienced athletes are going to bust through that or whatever. They're going to be burning, but they're going to get through it fast.
Mhm.
If you can't get through the whole workout like fast like that and have that same response,
Mhm.
scale down.
That's right.
So you shouldn't be just sitting there. If you might be able to get through the 21 and
Mhm.
be fine,
Yeah.
but to get through the 15 and the 9, you got to be able to maintain that.
That's right.
So you got to think about that before you start the workout as well.
Mhm. Exactly. So what would we scale the handstand push-up to?
Well, you could do them on a box.
Mhm.
That's a big one. The pike push-ups,
Mhm.
or even dumbbell overhead press.
Yep, dumbbell overhead press, a standard push-up at the very minimum.
Mhm.
I think the dumbbell overhead press seated where you're not getting, a lot of body movement into that is a great way to work range of motion.
Yep.
And strength all at the same time.
Right.
Developing
I think
that.
that's almost better than, say, your push-up.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of athletes still struggle with doing a push-up.
Yep.
And if you do the overhead press, you're doing the same movement that the handstand push-up does,
Right.
but with dumbbells. So
Right.
anyone can do that because you can modify the weight of the dumbbell.
Exactly. So regardless of and we'll talk about this towards the latter part of the podcast, but regardless of whether you're a beginner coming in the door for the first time, or you've been an athlete for 10 years, or you're coming back from injury, there's something in that handstand push-up. There's something that we can modify and should modify continuously to make sure you're improving your goal of GPP, general physical preparedness. Right? So that's kind of
so there's countless scaling options too, right?
That's right.
We just named 5 of them for one movement.
For one movement.
Right.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Let's cover those again. So handstand push-ups aren't in the game today, right?
Right.
So, okay.
Go to a box.
Go to a box. Great.
That's not in the
next
game.
one?
You don't have a box.
Yeah, don't have a box
Pike
available.
push-up.
I'm at home.
Right.
Do a pike push-up.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Right?
Do the dumbbell overhead press.
That's right.
Or the push-up.
That's
Don't
right.
have dumbbells at home. Get 2 milk jugs.
Exactly. Yeah. Put water in them.
Right.
Do an overhead press with 2 milk jugs and water.
Yeah.
CrossFit Health does that, online from how do I do workouts at home?
Yep.
Set on your couch and stand.
You can make anything a weight.
Anything. Exactly. Yep.
Take mom's favorite flower pot. Start throwing it overhead.
That's right. So the challenge is not necessarily, hey, I'm going to be frustrated today because I can't do handstand push-ups. It should be, hey, I can't do handstand push-ups today, but I'm working towards the strength. What can I do to
What
maintain
else can I do?
the stimulus to keep moving?
Right.
Right?
There's going to be a modification, but so that shouldn't even be that shouldn't be a question in your mind. The question should be which one do you choose?
That's right. Exactly.
To get the intended stimulus.
Yeah. And an athlete, so just like you and I, different. I'm older than what you are, so
a lot older. Yeah.
That's right. Yes, yeah, a lot older. I'm old enough to be his dad. Jeez. So when you come in, you're going to look at this style of workout, way differently than what I would look at it. So at 45, I'm looking to maintain integrity in my movement, maintain integrity in my shoulders. As I come back from shoulder surgery, I'm going to be looking at what are the best ways to modify that so I can continue to build strength. I know there's going to be a point in time, though, that for me, handstand push-ups are not going to be advisable regardless of my strength.
Right.
Right? I may be 70, right? And handstand push-ups, because of the neck and spine position, may not be the best appropriate thing for me to do. Great.
No problem.
But if it's in the workout, I still look forward to coming in and challenging myself, hey, I can do push-ups off a box. I can control it, right? Or I can do seated press with 55-pound dumbbells,
right,
which most 70-plus-year-olds probably won't have that ability. But I'm still getting the same stimulus, right?
Exactly.
So I look forward. That's one of the things I look forward to is my CrossFit career as I age. Like, hey, I'm going to have fun regardless of my ability or my age in here. Because I know I can infinitely
and that's what it is.
scale
It's
things.
fun.
That's right.
You should be doing this stuff because you want to.
That's right.
You want to be better.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
And it makes you, you're able to do more things outside the gym.
That's right.
So going to the gym might not be fun, but you get in here and then, everyone's cheering you on or whatever, you go out of the gym and then go on a family vacation and you guys can do more things than you could before.
That's right.
Or just, hey, I completed this hike. That felt great.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing I think people, these two workouts just themselves, we can talk about this. People kind of are like, oh, I shouldn't do CrossFit because that's just not for me. I don't do deadlifts, or I don't do, I don't press barbells over my head. And so the way you have to look at that is this, simply, those two movements themselves, deadlifts and handstand push-ups. Okay. So if I can't do a deadlift, right, or I'm not supposed to do a deadlift, or I'm just not comfortable in that, then anything that's on the floor, you should leave on the floor.
Right. Don't pick up your groceries.
Don't pick up the groceries, your case of beer, your grandkids, a $1 bill that you drop out of your wallet, you should leave it on the floor.
Yep. And you better not put it on a shelf either.
Thank you. Right? So any grocery that you buy, all of your upper shelves, the shelves that are at your head level or higher, should be empty. Because you just said, well, I'm not comfortable doing a handstand push-up. Okay, then never put anything over your head.
Right.
Because
and not even a handstand push-up, because you can modify that into just a straight press overhead.
Right. So if I don't have the strength enough to take, you know, a light dumbbell and put something over my head, then I shouldn't be putting something away in a cupboard
On the shelf, yeah,
that's
exactly.
at eye level or higher.
Right.
Right. So CrossFit is there's this term called functional movement that I think people, they lose the translation of what that functional movement is. We call functional movement things like deadlifts and
Cleans.
air squats.
Clean.
Yep.
If you pick your groceries up, set them on the table.
Mm-hmm.
You just did a
You
clean.
were performing a clean.
Right.
So we just call it differently.
Mm-hmm.
People are like, oh, I don't know if I can do a squat. Do you sit on your couch?
Right.
Yes, I do. Do you stand up? Yes, I do. Okay.
Got a squat.
Perfect. You just call it a little something different than what we would call it. There's
Right.
nothing, there's no magic there. It's truly functional movement. But our functional movement is deadlifting and squatting and overhead pressing. That's the type of functional movement. You just look at it differently.
Different.
Loading your
And the reason you have to
refrigerator.
keep doing those is so you can do it over time.
That's right. And that's the key with changing the stimulus, you know, and changing. That's why when you come in here, you're going to scale it.
Right.
Most every time, somebody's
Mhm.
going to scale something when
Yeah.
you come in the door, right? So that would be the kind of the time domain. If you look at, you know, hey, am I trying to finish the movements in and around the same time, but still get the same stimulus, right, as
Yep.
everyone else? And you just unlock.
I
your
just
leg.
got my stupid leg in there.
Good job. Good job. So the second one is kind of general movement pattern.
Which is, we were just kind of talking about that earlier with the
Mhm.
handstand push-up. We just didn't really think
Exactly.
about it.
Yeah.
So if you're going to do a handstand push-up, our modifications were the on the box, dumbbell press,
Yep.
pike push-up, push-up.
Standard push-up.
So you're going to want to scale something similar, that's similar to the movement that you're doing or the range of motion. You don't want to do, like, if there's handstand push-ups in the workout, you don't want to substitute it with deadlifts or something.
Yeah.
It should translate.
Yeah.
So with scaling, you're trying to work on your weaknesses. That's what you're trying to attack, and then you're trying to work up to hopefully be able to do the full movement someday. So if you have to scale the workout, it's pointless to do something that's not going to help you work through your weaknesses.
That's right.
Because if you have to scale, that's generally a weakness.
Yeah. So if you're doing a pulling effort for that day, rowing or deadlifting, you don't want to take one of those and modify it to a pushing effort.
Right.
Because you're missing the stimulus,
Right.
you're missing the motor movement pattern that we're trying to create strength in for that
Mhm.
day, right?
Right.
I mean, we're trying to create strength in your deadlift, your legs, and your pull, right? So let's try to maintain that same movement.
Right. Yeah, and like you said, rowing, that's more of an aerobic effort.
Mhm.
So it's an aerobic pulling effort. You don't want to get on the bench press and do a max bench press.
That's right.
That's a heavy pushing effort.
That's right. Yeah.
So
So that's why the coach. That's why it's so nice to come into a CrossFit location versus maybe somewhere else, where you're kind of independently on your own, and you're like, well, I don't feel good. I don't know how to do a bench press properly.
You see that?
I saw that.
What the heck is
Yeah,
that?
flashed out and got you.
Got me.
Like,
Dang
so
it, Dave.
You walk into a standard gym when you're on your own, and you may miss the stimulus that you were trying to create because you just don't know how to modify the movement. But
Right.
when you come into a facility like CrossFit Crave, then it's like, I don't have to rely on that. I've got a
Mhm.
coach that is going
Right.
to help me through because they understand what's required for the day's workout.
Yeah.
Plus, they also understand the stimulus that I need to change in order to maintain that, or the movement pattern I need to change in order to maintain that same stimulus.
Right. And so in regards to general movement patterns, for an injured athlete, you're still going to want to try to get the general movement patterns, right?
Mhm.
So if you can't do, let's say you have shoulder issues and you can't do a thruster, well, we can still get the front squat in,
Right.
even if you can't go overhead.
That's
So you're
right.
still getting a similar stimulus.
Yep, exactly. And we're going to talk about that a little bit when we talk about, the elements of scaling and volume and what we're doing there. But you hit on that very next topic that we want to cover, right, is complexity. So the complexity could be different movements mixed together, like we had the deadlift and rowing before. It
Mhm.
could be a Olympic snatch, which is a high-level, high-skill movement, and rowing, right? Or it could be three movements. Let's say it's
A triplet.
snatching and pull-ups and rowing, right? So now we start throwing some complexity in the workout, and we may need to scale that,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Well, like we had muscle ups,
Mm-hmm.
so most athletes can't do a muscle up,
Right.
and instead you do ring rows and dips.
And dips, right? Because you're trying to develop the skill and the range of motion to be able to complete a muscle up at some point in time. But it's a complex movement.
Right.
Yesterday there were 3 or 4 movements that were put together, and that was just one of them.
Yeah.
So you've got a lot of complexity inside of one workout, but we want to be able to maintain moving through that.
Right. So there can be complexity within the workout as a whole and within just a movement of that workout.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure. Cool. I think this is all good, man. Let's talk about the kind of elements of scaling a little bit. There's several elements of scaling. There's volume, that's reps. And then, if you go on, you can look at the load. So that's the weight maybe you're carrying and the range of motion. We talked about some of those kind of already as we went through each of the first requirements, but, volume. So like the 21-15-9 that we used just a minute ago, there's some workouts that are like Murph. Let's talk about Murph, for example. It's a mile run. 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 air squats, followed by a mile run.
And most people can't even do the mile run.
That's right.
So that's a very high volume.
Very high volume
workout.
Right. So the elements of scaling is we need to look at the volume, the total amount of movements in each section or each part of that workout. What do we need to do with that with somebody that's brand new?
Right.
Right. We're never going to bring somebody in that's brand new, that's never done CrossFit, and say, hey, you need to run a mile. Okay. Maybe you can't run. Maybe you're a marathoner.
Yep.
And running a mile, is under
Not
4
a
minutes for
problem.
you. So you're like, that's easy. You get that done.
Right.
Yeah, I'll be back in 2 minutes and 53 seconds. Hang on.
Yeah.
All right.
Jeez.
Or 4 minutes, or whatever the record is. But they come in here and they've never done a pull-up in their lives. Well, doing 100 pull-ups is not going to work.
Yeah, it'd be terrible.
Yeah. Or doing 200 push-ups, is not going to be the right effort. Even though you're a great runner, you may have never done a push-up, or certainly probably never done a pull-up.
Right.
So we need to scale that back.
Exactly.
So the amount of volume we're trying to change.
Right. And so you can do that in many ways too. You can cut down, I don't know if we're talking about this later, the total reps, just cut it down. I guess that's your volume.
Yeah.
Total reps, cut it down. If they can't do that many or never done it one, cut the total reps down and maybe use a band for your pull-ups or jumping pull-ups or,
Yeah, so you're scaling the volume right away.
Right.
Because of the movement, right? Doing a high volume of push-ups first time you come in is not a good idea. Your arms won't recoup from that. That's
exactly.
It's not
Yep.
good. Yeah.
And so what you're wanting is the intensity, right?
That's right.
So famous quote by Greg Glassman was that you should be impressed by intensity, not volume. So that's really what we've been talking about in the last couple podcasts, really, is that
That's true.
Yeah, you want the stimulus, the intensity. You don't want it to be someone to be impressed at you because you RX to work out.
That's right.
No one's going to be impressed at you because you RX to work out.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. If you are extra workout, let's say it's Murph, for example, and most average CrossFitters, they're going to do Murph in maybe an hour to an hour and 15 minutes, somewhere in that time domain if they're doing it properly, right? But if you're trying to be impressed by sheer volume and it takes you 2 hours to finish Murph, you've completely missed the process of the workout. You've missed the intensity, and it's just not impressive. Yeah, it's good that you finished it. That's cool, but we could have modified it for you. Would have been a little safer for you to finish it. You would have finished it inside of that same stimulus that we were looking for, that same time domain. And guess what? The next time you do Murph, you're more apt to improve your
exactly
score because you've done
and
it
I think,
properly.
there can be times where you're just like, for yourself, I want to finish this workout. I want to see if I can do it. And if that's for yourself, and it's like a personal goal just to get through it. If it takes you 2 hours, 5 hours, I don't care. It's just a great, it feels good.
Achievement.
It's an achievement, right? So
that's different, right?
Right. That's completely separate from what we're talking about right here.
Yeah. That's outside of the realms of general physical preparedness, I think. That's just something that, hey, I want to challenge myself, and I know it's going to be difficult, but I want to get through it. Awesome. You need to tackle those, and that's perfect.
And this sets you up to be able to do that kind of stuff.
That's right.
So
exactly. Yep. People have aspirations to run a marathon.
Right.
Awesome. That is a huge feat, right? But you're not going to step in one day and just go run a marathon, right? You can do that. We've had athletes that have done that in it's been a while to recover from those. Right. So you want to build up to that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Sure. Exactly. So that's kind of elements of scaling. Volume, right? We would reduce that volume right away. Task-based workouts. If you we've got an example here, a programmed version of 4 rounds of time for a 400-meter run and 50 air squats. Right. So 4 rounds, 400 meters, 4 rounds of that's a mile. Right, and then 50 air squats on top of that. So I'm really taxing the hips and hip flexors.
Right.
Well, guess what? We have athletes that come in here that have never been able to walk a 400, let alone run a 400, and then you throw 4 rounds of that.
Yeah.
So that task
and all the
base,
air squats.
Yeah.
That's going to tax your legs even more.
That's right. Exactly. So we would change the task there.
Mm-hmm.
You'd say, okay, 400, probably not.
Right. Let's cut that one down.
Right. So what would we do? We would say, maybe we do a
walk a 200, walk a 100.
That's right. Yeah. Instead of running, we're going to walk it.
Mm-hmm.
Or we're going to jog a 100.
Right.
Because that's it.
Yep.
Or today, running is completely out of the equation. My body, just my knees aren't set up for that because I'm just not fit as I should be. Great. Let's grab a rower.
Yep.
Right. If we can't walk it, then let's go to something that's very low impact.
And that's the thing too. You want to keep the same stimulus, right? So the run would be, in this scenario, the run would be a better option than the row.
Yep.
Just because you're getting the same stimulus running or walking.
That's right.
But if you absolutely can't do it, the row is a perfectly good substitution.
Yeah, so let's talk about injury in that case, right? So if we have, we have one of our athletes, Mark, that has got a cast on his foot, rowing is that's just not going to happen. Or I'm sorry, running is not going to happen, right?
I was going to say, you made a sweet play yesterday.
Yeah, I know. So we hooked up a rower. We took the slide, the base seat and slide off the rower, put the rower on the ground, and he sat on a box, and he still was able to row. So now I can get that athlete to row a 400 versus running a 400. He's getting some of the same stimulus. He's getting winded, right? And he's still beginning a good workout. So that's modifying the run because of an injury.
Right. This was incredible. I'm going to explain this for people that, or for coaches or whatever that want to see this.
Sure.
I blew my mind. He took the rower and took it in half, whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hinged.
When you cleaned it and stuff, unhinged it. He put 2 50-pound dumbbells on the fan part.
Yeah.
And then just set him, his name Mark, set him on a box, and then had his legs to either side, and his row was just he didn't slide on the seat, he just went hip hinged forward and back. Absolutely incredible.
The rower didn't go anywhere because it was held down by the
dumbbell.
He was still able to get the same range of motion that he would on a standard row with the sleep going.
Yep. He just wasn't pushing through with his legs.
Right. He's just not pushing through his legs.
Yeah.
Which he couldn't do.
Right.
Because that's the limitation he has.
Awesome.
So that's that's kind of what you look at when you look at a kind of a task. Do I need to change the task to meet the athlete's ability?
Right.
Sure.
Creativity is key.
That's right. Exactly. And then the load. Load and range of motion, we kind of talked about all of that already. We talked about that with the deadlift, the load. Hey, if I have to reduce the load, then I reduce the amount of weight that I'm pulling, right?
Right.
And range of motion, you made a good point. Yeah, you made a good point. I'd like you to explain the range of motion, because we have some athletes like, I really want to be able to perfect my squat before I do anything else.
Right.
Or I just can't squat that low.
Yeah, so a lot of athletes, when they first come in, they're like I coach them in the intro sessions, and they'll tell me that they want to perfect 1 or 2 movements before they move on to everything else. They want the best squat form possible before you progress to the deadlift or reverse whatever.
Right.
That's not possible, right?
Yeah.
First off, no one has perfect squat form. And then you're going to get the most bang for your buck just working on every movement, the form of every movement, and your body's going to learn those patterns, and then slowly over time, I've been working on my deadlift, but look, I have a great squat now, or my squat improved, or so you shouldn't specialize, right? CrossFit, we specialize in not specializing.
That's right. Exactly.
So right, if you're trying to focus the whole time on I just need a good squat, and then you look at the workout for the next day and you're like we're not squatting today, so I'm not going to come. Just what you're going to do, one workout a week.
Yeah.
And that's That's not beneficial for everyone. So it's better to do it with not necessarily poor form, but not ideal form and lightweight. So you're constantly trying to work those ranges of motion.
Yeah.
Than to not come at all.
Yeah, and I think the process you have to look at from, let's just talk about the squat, for example, is my ability or inability to squat properly, is that because of a range of motion issue, like an injury or something going on? Is it a flexibility issue, which we can work on, right? Or is it just the want? I just don't want to get there.
Yeah,
right?
It hurts to get lower.
Yeah, that's right. So what we want to do is we want to be consistent in our aggressive, even from a coaching perspective, in our request of the athlete to get to the range of motion they can do physically, and maintain stability. So I really want you to fight for that full range of motion in the squat.
Right. Or if you can't do it, you're just, the athlete has light load and you're like, try to get a half an inch lower.
That's right.
Just work on that today.
Yep. Because if there's not a limitation due to injury, and it's literally lack of strength and mobility, if we avoid the movement, then we'll never get there.
Exactly.
Right? So if it's a strength and mobility issue, then we want to try to fight for that movement each time, and over time, gradually that'll get better.
Yep.
Right? As long as there's not an injury that's limiting that.
And the amazing thing about CrossFit is that all the movements and the functional movements, they all kind of go together, right?
That's right.
So if you're avoiding one, you're affecting and not getting good at any of them. You just start getting good at one, and then like that's going to transfer, like your deadlift is going to transfer, like, oh, now I can get my squat better. Well, I should work on my squat better, and that's going to help my deadlift get better. I'm going to, my clean's going to get better because I'm deadlifting, and so it just all builds on top of each other. Yeah. So to think that you should skip and only perfect one, you're doing yourself a real disservice. I think.
Yeah, if you're like throwing a heavy barbell around and you want to really be able to drop in the bottom of a squat clean, well, if you can't squat properly first, you'll never squat
Right. You
properly
shouldn't use the weight to
with
force you into the depth.
So we need to work on one to improve the other links in the chain as we go.
Exactly.
That's right. That's good stuff. So that's kind of range of motion. The last piece here I think we want to cover quickly is kind of who should scale. What do we classify scaling in? And CrossFit does a nice job and breaks those down into kind of 3 or 4 levels. They go beginner, right? They have intermediate, experienced, and kind of a returning athlete, and then there's a final one that is the kind of the injured athlete. And each one of those should be looked at kind of independently.
So that it breaks it down nice, but that means it's because everyone should scale, like we said in the beginning of the podcast, right? So just because a beginner might scale down, an expert person, or an experienced person might have to scale up.
That's right.
But so beginners, you're still developing your range of motion, right? So you can't get a full depth in the squat or I don't know, get in the proper form, but you should still be working through that. And maybe your body awareness and your consistency with movements aren't ideal, but that's what you're there for, to work on those. Exactly.
Let's look at the Olympic snatch, like a very complex Olympic weightlifting movement, probably one of the more complex movements we do in here. If I'm a beginner, and I'll use your dad for example, Chris, we worked with him last night. We did squat snatches yesterday, right? So he's got the ability to take a bar from the ground to overhead in a muscle snatch or a power snatch, right? He does have the ability to do an overhead squat. But to put those two complex movements together, because he's new, is not going to work.
For anyone new.
That's right. For anyone, regardless of your ability. So what we do is like, okay, so let's power snatch that in a really good power snatch form.
You catch it overhead and then squat.
So I can work those two movements together, but separate them just a little bit. I have to do that from my perspective. I've never been a good full snatcher, right? Full squat snatch. So there's a lot of times where I have to catch that and kind of ride the weight down because I'm not comfortable just dropping under a bar.
Right. That's a good point too. How long have you been CrossFitting?
10 years.
10 years, and you still have to scale the Olympic movement.
Yeah. So
you're not going to get it overnight.
I'm not going to get it overnight.
And you shouldn't expect to get it overnight.
Exactly.
It's perfect.
Yeah. So that would be kind of a beginner, like how long have you been in the gym? Or have you been in the gym a long time, but you're still a novice at that movement, right?
Right.
And that's kind of where I'm at with the snatch, for example.
And that's an important thing to let a coach know too, is where your skill level is. Like, so if you're a coach, like here at CrossFit Crave, we're more than likely, the coaches are gonna know who the athletes are, what they're capable of, maybe you see patterns over time. If you're dropping into a new gym or new box, that coach has no idea if you're the fittest person in the world or if you're just starting out. This could be your first CrossFit class for all they know.
Right.
So it's very important to let the coach know when you drop in.
Yep, exactly.
And that's going to be the best experience for you, and it's going to help them be able to coach you.
Agree. What's the next level? So you got a beginner, and beginner could be based on the movement too, right? Again.
Exactly. So you're a beginner in the snatch.
That's right.
Or skill level of a beginner, maybe.
That's right. Or somebody that's just walked in the door for the first time and never CrossFitted.
Exactly.
So then you kind of have the intermediate, athlete that's somewhere. It's not a beginner. She's not a beginner. Maybe been in a CrossFit box for 3 years or better. Right. But
Knows the movements. Still needs good cues and.
That's right. They're not injured. They're just not. They're just not where maybe they want to be. Right.
Right.
So we have to look at the scaling. For an athlete like that, and very should the example we used before with the heavy dumbbells or the heavy deadlift, right? So, the intermediate athlete can deadlift really, really well, but 300 plus pounds is over their 1 rep max. We're not going to put that athlete there.
Right.
They want to get a 300-pound deadlift, but they don't have it yet. So then we're going to scale that, to that movement, so it's lighter and they can move through that properly.
Exactly.
Right, and maintain that stimulus.
Yep.
Yeah,
so you could be you could be a beginner and an intermediate and an expert.
Depending on the movement.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah, that's a great point. So an experienced athlete, that's somebody that's probably well versed in CrossFit. She's been doing CrossFit for quite some time, but you still want to maintain the integrity of the workout and the stimulus, right? So hence one of the reasons why we program for the 1%er, right?
Exactly.
So
yep.
we put programming together or review the programming that we use based on what athlete could walk in the door that may work out with us that day.
Right.
Is it me? Then I'm in that intermediate, and some movements I'm a beginner on, so I'm not going to be able to do it RX, but I also want to give the same challenge to a Tia Claire Toomey.
Right.
If she walks in, fittest woman in the world.
Exactly.
Right. I want to be able to her to look at the workout and go,
okay, let's do this.
Challenging.
Right.
Yeah. Good.
So in order to make a workout for everyone, you have to make it for the best.
That's right.
And that's why we do that. So it's much easier to scale down than to try to figure out how to scale up. So if you make it hard, it's just going to transfer over where most people are going to scale. So you have a set scale, you have a list of movements for everything, a list of rep schemes for everything, and then you're just like, hey, I think this would be best for you. This would be best for me. This is what we're going to do. But the best athlete can be like, okay, I'm just going to do the workout that's on the board.
That's right. Yeah.
So that's why you have to make the workout hard.
Yeah, that's why you program the way you do, because if you watered everything down, we wouldn't be successful.
Right.
You wouldn't be successful. You would hit plateaus. You would never get any better.
Exactly.
That's why CrossFit, it's got to be definable, it's got to be measurable, and it's got to be repeatable, right? And if I don't have those things, and I go to a facility that says, hey, we're just going to throw you in this workout and it's going to take you 30 minutes or 45 minutes or whatever the workout scheme is for that day, but you don't ever count their reps, you don't ever count how much weight they're doing, and you don't record that, then
what's the point?
Yeah, what's the point? Why am I coming here? And you have to be thinking about that.
Right.
Anytime you go into a workout facility.
Exactly.
Why am I here? What's the goal? And am I doing things to maintain that goal?
Yep.
Right. And that's why the programming is kind of set the way it is.
Yeah. So then, for the experienced athlete, you probably have everything, all your skills down. You know what you're doing. And then if you're at the elite level, you might not get the same stimulus as someone would.
Right.
So you're going to have to either maybe use kettlebells instead of the barbell, just because that's so much more, I don't know, the stability makes the movement so much harder.
Exactly.
Or the lack of stability,
that's
rather.
Right.
But mainly, like, so you're not going to want to scale every single, or scale up every single time, right? You're not going to want to switch out the barbell for kettlebells because barbell's too easy now. Right. Or like, so you're going to want to go, majority of the time, you're going to want to try to go faster.
That's right.
And get the workout done faster. So it's a good example of that is your 800-meter run. Then the intensity, an 800-meter run, if you're an experienced athlete, is doable.
Right.
What makes it so hard is how fast you go and the amount of time that it takes.
The effort you put into it.
The effort you put into it. So that's very similar to every CrossFit workout. Is the faster you go, the harder it is.
Yeah.
The more you're going to get, the more return on your investment you're going to get.
Right.
So for maybe you're an elite level athlete, maybe you don't want to break up your sets as much. So I don't know, hold on to the bar longer, decrease the amount of breaks you're taking in between each set.
Right.
Just try to strive for a faster time instead of switching it to heavier weights or a different.
Yeah, let's use that 800-meter run, for example. I'm going to clip off a 400-meter. I'm going to probably do it in 2 minutes. You know, it's not super fast, but it's not super slow. So I'm going to know I can maintain that over an 800 period of time. So I'm going to try to do my 800 under 4 minutes, let's say. Right. So for an experienced athlete, what we would tell them from a scaling perspective is, listen, we're not going to shorten the duration. You're still going to run 800 meters. But if you've typically done that in 4 minutes, I need you to push for 3:30.
Right.
I need you to trim 30 seconds off that. But you're probably not going to trim that much.
30 seconds is a lot of time.
A lot of time. But you need to look at, you know, can I improve that? So in experience, then I need to ramp up my effort, go faster.
Exactly.
Right? And that's my scaling. It's just scaling to the upper end, not to the lower end, reducing the amount, you know, or the pace.
Right. So really, anyone can scale up, though. If you're in the middle of the workout and you're like, oh, this is kind of easy, well, just go a little faster.
That's
Run
right.
a little faster.
Yeah. As long as you maintain the integrity of the movement and skill, then
exactly.
Go at it.
Form's good. Everything's good.
That's right. Go at it.
You're
faster.
feeling good.
Yeah. I was in one of my CrossFit seminars. Matt Chan was coaching it and teaching the seminar. He's a former competitive CrossFit athlete. He helps coach the CrossFit competitive course for competitors, right? How to compete. And he made a comment in that when we were talking about, you know, RXing workouts and RX plus, and he used the word RX plus, and he goes, what frustrates him is people come in and say, oh, I'm going to RX plus that workout. I'm going to just add weight to it. No, do it faster. Do it at the weight prescribed if you can do it, but do it quicker. As long as you can maintain integrity and the skill of the movement, then go faster.
Right.
And let that be your stimulus.
Exactly.
For that.
Yeah.
And I thought
Perfect.
that's really solid advice.
It's good.
You know, it's really good advice.
Yeah. So I guess before we wrap this up, we got your returning athletes, right? So that's going to be you after you get your brace off and start working back in.
Yeah.
If you've been gone for a while, your body's no longer used to the amount of volume that you would.
The adaptation is gone.
The adaptation is
right.
gone. So you're not gonna jump in right where you were when you left off.
That's right.
Right. So you're gonna want to scale that down, maybe 2 or 3 weeks. Just scale everything down till you start building it back up, because you'll build it back up a lot faster.
That's right.
After you've already had it than when you're just working on it.
Exactly.
So just take a step back, try to get through everything, scale everything.
Yeah.
Appropriate volume. Let your body get used to.
That's right. Yeah.
Because volume.
Movement. Yeah, you're right. From a returning athlete, just like an injury, just like coming back from surgery, I know how to move. Right. If you do handstand walks, handstand push-ups, whatever I need to do, but I've lost the adaptation because of muscle development, because of cardiovascular development. You know, the second you start slowing things down and you're setting it, you don't have that anymore.
Exactly.
So yeah, I've got to modify every workout, whether it be a time domain, a rep scheme, anything I do, I've got to modify it for some time. It could be 6 months, it could be a year, until I'm able to compete back to where I was before.
Yep, exactly. Perfect point.
Cool.
So I guess to wrap it all up into one little sentence, our needs vary by degree, not kind.
That's right. Say that one more time.
Our needs vary by degree, not kind.
That's awesome, right?
Yep. So we all have to do the same thing, but to a different degree.
Exactly.
The degrees you're scaling.
That's right. That's perfect. I think that's a great way to wrap it up.
Yep, except our O2s.
Our O2s, yeah. Thanks, Dave.
Love
We're
you,
not
Dave.
sponsored or anything.
Not sponsored yet, but
they're
we still
great.
love you, Dave.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
Yep.
Right on, man. Well,
Awesome.
that's our podcast for today, and tune in next week.
Yep. Peace out.
Next week's going to be great.
Unnamed
Podcast.
maybe named by now though.
Yeah.
Podcast
Probably
that we
by
don't
the
know
time
the
this
name
drops,
of.
There's a name for it.
Yeah.
right on.
Awesome.
All right, thanks, guys.
Cool.
Thanks, man. See
Yes,
ya.
sir.